This is the Communications Campaign Final Project for Audrey Stewart, Kelsey Earle, Nathan Boucher, Regan Evans, and Ben Chin. As a general overview, our purpose with this project is simply to spread awareness of how to create and foster a healthy work environment, as well as to show and discuss just how important that can be. So, in teaching about this, we hope to make life a little bit more manageable for those in jobs they would describe as toxic or not a healthy work environment. More specifically, to complete our goals, we have three main objectives. Number one being to inform and detail how to create a healthy work environment. Number two, detailing how to maintain a healthy work environment, because it means nothing if you don't maintain it. And the third point is underlining the importance of creating and fostering a healthy work environment. And that is more of an encompassing objective with teaching how to do it and why it is important to do so. So, to expand on that, really what we're after here is teaching people, specifically students, how to create and maintain a healthy work environment so that they may not necessarily be excited to go to work every day, but they don't absolutely dread the idea of it. I don't know about you, but when I was 16, if I had had a healthy work environment in my first few jobs, I may have a different attitude towards current jobs or just my jobs at the time. It's very important to teach these things as early on as you can, because as they obtain higher echelons in their workplace, they can enforce good habits and reduce turnover rates, increase productivity, because if your employees are happy, they're going to work harder. And really, now, I think that's what we're after here. Successful communication is predicated on two things: purpose and audience. You can't really have one without the other. You can have a great idea or product to sell, but if you're unable to identify an audience that will be receptive to it, then it remains to be intangible, meaning it's almost entirely useless. Our purpose in this case is to sell the idea of creating a healthy workplace and the benefits of doing so. The audience that we are selling to is the students at Salt Lake Community College, because according to a study conducted by Georgetown University, an estimated 70% of college students were employed while attending school. This figure has continued to grow with higher enrollment rates and increased tuition. So obviously, teaching students how to create a healthy work environment is very helpful to them and anybody else they're going to work with to make sure they get a better experience out of their workplace. More to that point, creating a healthy workplace would ideally be conductive and beneficial to our audience, the students at Salt Lake Community College, as well as really any other college, because the stresses that are really brought on with the obligations of receiving a higher education can be a lot on their own. But when you combine them with a volatile workplace, the pressures of that may prove to be a bit excessive and honestly more than a lot of people can handle. Witnessing both a workplace that is filled with negativity and hostility and another that was healthy, I can attest to the difference in how each are able to affect your mental outlook. Because today's society places such a heavy emphasis on technology, we've decided to communicate our message to students using both modern and older but tested tactics to reach them, being basically video through PowerPoint form. And in addition to that, we created a website, um, a brochure, a business card. One of us wrote a blog about it, and another created a mass email to be sent out to really, you know, trump up awareness of this. As if you work in a volatile or hostile or toxic, whatever you want to call it, work environment, it really can get to you, especially if you're in school as well. It's just a lot of pressure for someone, especially young people. who aren't really prepared to deal with a lot of pressure in this day and age specifically. Moving on, we have 4 key messages for our audience on how to create healthy work environments. Now, first, it's important to understand that when making a plan to create a positive work culture, you must create a plan to maintain that culture, as stated earlier. The second key message is to recognize your staff. Even if you're not the boss, it's important to recognize staff members publicly and soon after the goal was achieved as well. The third key message is be vulnerable. As leaders in an organization, it is important for employees to trust in the company, and that trust is the key to a good culture. Vulnerability creates that trust. If your employees see you as somewhat vulnerable, they see you as a little bit more human, they trust you a little bit more. The last key message is to strive for employment or to create an environment that has challenge stress. Now, this kind of stress is stressful enough to keep people engaged without them becoming overly stressed, or on the other end of it, bored with their work. It's best to use the SMART goal model when reviewing career goals. This stands for simple, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time sensitive. Following this model of goal setting will encourage the development of these challenge stresses. Now, keeping those 4 key messages in mind, let's move to how we communicated our key messages throughout the course of this project. We used many channels of communication within our media mix. We created a website that included a homepage with key information. It also included a page that outlines what they can do now for our audience to get a head start. The last section of the website included a contact page that listed a phone number, email, and a link to our blog. We also set up an email account, and we'll send out an email outlining our key messages, as well as a link to the website, in case they become interested and want to look into it further. The blog, which you can see through the link, has a password on it. The password is capital B Business 2200, all one word. The business card was created to be something really just to quickly hand out to our audience and engage them and encourage them to really look into it, because a few simple questions on a business card with a website, super convenient for basically anybody. The other thing we created was a pamphlet. It was a 2-sided trifold pamphlet that outlines our key messages and has more information than the business card. Altogether, I do feel that we have great channels in our media mix to reach all of our audience. Moving on once again and going deeper into our goals. The goals of the campaign are pretty simple, but not necessarily easy. First, we want to truly educate, not just inform the students of Salt Lake Community College on the benefits of working in a positive corporate environment. And primarily, we'd love to help the students understand the hallmarks of a company with a great culture, so that going into a job, you know how you're going to be treated, you know how it's going to be in general. Failing that, we'd at least like to educate on how to create a better work culture after they're in to wherever it is they will be working. And truly educating someone on that means you want them to more than just listen. You need them to understand what you're saying, where you're coming from, why it's important, and how it's going to affect them going forward. Expanding a little bit on what I was saying about helping students understand the hallmarks of a company with a great culture, we'd like to educate them on how to create it, but we would also like to change their priorities when selecting job offers. Now, most people, especially young, will think salary, benefits, and career path are the most important things. But we really want the students to include happiness as a work requirement. Ultimately, we want students to understand the impact that having a healthy work environment can have on the other parts of your life. You may not necessarily be happy going to work every day, but it's a lot better to go to a job that you really enjoy, or at least don't dread, than to go someplace that you wake up in the morning and hate that you have to go. Because it can affect your personal life as well. If you're not happy at work, that'll carry over later when you're at home with your loved ones. All of that is really stuff to take into consideration when thinking about selecting a job offer. As we move into the lessons learned area of this, I think I speak for all of us when I say we learned a lot during the process of creating the campaign. Mainly, we learned that a lot of work goes into it, but not just creating it, executing it as well. Teamwork was really the key here to our success. We had far more meetings than suggested, and we did some really good communication through shared documents, text messages, email, under the wire on some of them. If we were able to go back in time, I think we would have put a little bit of extra time into the early planning and took the time to grasp the end goal that needed to be achieved before we began. Because we did kind of come into it with what we thought was a good plan, but it ended up being just a little short of what we were going to need, and we had to make some changes on the fly, which I also think we did very well at adapting and overcoming some of the situations that admittedly we put ourselves in. The graphic up here now is our tactical plan. And our tactical plan consisted of our how, what, who, and when. For our tactical plan, obviously our audience was the SLIC, or Salt Lake Community College student body. The message that we hoped to send to the students is how healthy work environments are created and maintained, and the importance of them. We used a lot of channels. We used website, email, blog, brochure, and a business card. The release date of all of that was on December 5th. And some of the questions we wanted to ask were, what is your work environment like? Is it positive or is it negative? Do you enjoy it? These are all pretty important because we spend more time at work in a week than we do with our families in most cases. And it's important to enjoy your work since so much time is spent there. Creating a positive work environment will allow for more success in the company and a lot more happiness. Positive work environments take the efforts of several people in order to be created and stay in place. A positive workplace provides a constructive environment that fulfills our needs for autonomy, connection, and impact while ensuring the means to food and shelter. Workplaces that enable positivity give employees access to the essential elements of well-being: positive emotion, positive relationships, purpose, meaning, positive accomplishment, and positive health. If your business is lacking these elements, you may have a toxic work environment in front of you that needs to be avoided. To conclude all of this, I think overall we learned a lot as a group about how to communicate with our audience and each other. Meaning, we learned a lot of how to create a project that'll communicate with who we want to get it to, but we also learned what it takes to communicate with a bunch of other people to make that project. We used a lot of different avenues for both, really, and we ran into some challenges, but I think we did a great job adapting to those and overcoming those challenges. Looking back at it, I think it was an overall positive outcome, and at least some of us had fun doing it. I know I did. I hope you enjoyed learning about our campaign and that you feel confident in knowing how to create healthy work environments, how to maintain them, and really just how important they are to the lives of everybody out there in the workforce. The last 2 pages are just some references for statistics and quotes that we used throughout.